Imagine visiting the one person you loved more than life itself after 20 long years of silence. That's exactly what Keanu Reeves did. But when he knocked on his ex's door, what he found inside didn't just break his heart, it changed everything. This is the emotional, unbelievable story Hollywood never showed you, and the moment that proved Keanu Reeves is more human than any role he's ever played. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and ring the bell so you never miss an update. Now let's dive into what really happened. He never expected this moment to arrive. Not after 20 long years, not after everything life had taken from him, and definitely not from the one person he thought he had left safely in the past. Keanu Reeves had learned to live with silence. In Hollywood, noise surrounded him. Cameras, interviews, cheers, endless flashing lights. But deep inside, he carried a quiet, untouched memory. A memory he never spoke about, not even in the most intimate interviews. Some memories are too tender, too fragile to expose to the world. And Emily Carter was one of them. That morning started like any other. Keanu woke up early, brewed his simple cup of black coffee, and sat by the window in the soft Los Angeles sunlight. He scrolled through the usual messages, studio updates, agent reminders, fan notes, none of which surprised him. Until he saw her name, Emily Carter, a name he had not heard, seen, or whispered in 20 years. His hands froze. The world around him felt strangely still, as if time itself paused to watch what would happen next. The message wasn't long. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't angry. It was simply, "Keanu, I really need to talk to you." Just 12 words, yet each one hit him like a tidal wave. Emily was his first love, his first real heartbreak. The first woman who had seen him before fame, before success, before the world decided he was a superstar. She knew the man he used to be, the dreamer struggling for his first role, the young actor afraid of failing, the boy who believed love could fix everything. Their story ended abruptly, painfully, without closure. She walked away, scared of a future filled with uncertainty, while he chased dreams bigger than both of them. Life pushed them apart, and time buried their connection under years of noise and distance. But this message, this sudden return, ripped open everything he had sealed shut. Keanu stood up, paced, sat down, stood up again. His heart raced, not because of anger, but because of something deeper. Something he wasn't sure he was ready to feel again. After several minutes of silence, he made a decision that would surprise even his closest friends. He would go to her. He needed answers. He needed closure. And maybe a part of him simply needed to see her one more time. Keanu didn't tell anyone where he was going. No assistant to handle the schedule. No publicist to prepare statements. No security team trailing behind. It was just him, Keanu Reeves, the man behind the fame, driving an old black Jeep he rarely used anymore. The engine hummed steadily as he left the noise of Los Angeles behind and headed toward a quiet neighborhood he hadn't seen in decades. The sky was bright, the roads almost empty, and yet his heart felt heavier with each passing mile. As the city faded in his rearview mirror, memories slowly began to surface, soft at first, then clearer, sharper. Like scenes from a film he once started but never got the chance to finish. He remembered Emily's laugh, so genuine it filled every room with warmth. He remembered the nights she stayed awake with him while he practiced lines for auditions he wasn't sure he'd ever land. He remembered her hand in his, squeezing it every time he doubted himself. She believed in him long before Hollywood did. Back then, he had nothing. No fame. No money. No idea what his future would look like. But Emily saw something in him, something he couldn't even see in himself. Then life, as it often does, made its own decisions. Emily wanted security, a predictable life, a future that felt steady. Keanu wanted dreams, risk, and the uncertainty of chasing something bigger than himself. They didn't fight. They didn't argue. They simply drifted apart, quietly and painfully. She took a different path. He followed his. And by the time his career began to rise, she was already gone. He told himself he'd reach out someday, Maybe when things settled, when he wasn't overwhelmed with films, interviews, tragedies, and constant public attention. But fame builds walls. Slowly, silently, it separates you from the life you once lived. And by the time he looked back, 20 years had already passed. Now, here he was, driving through a neighborhood that looked frozen in time, as if nothing had changed except him. Keanu pulled up in front of a small, familiar house. The sight of it squeezed something deep in his chest. He stepped out of the Jeep, walked toward the door, and stood there for a moment, listening to his own heartbeat. Then, finally, he knocked. The door creaked open slowly, and for a moment, Keanu felt as if time itself had folded in half. There she stood, Emily. Older, yes. Lines around her eyes, silver strands in her hair. But the essence of her, the softness in her eyes, that was still the same. Her eyes widened, not in shock, but in something far deeper. Relief. It was as if she had been waiting for this moment, hoping for it, yet never believing it would truly happen. Keanu, she whispered, her voice trembling ever so slightly, as though she feared he might disappear if she spoke too loudly. He stepped inside. Her home was small, simple, filled with warm light from the sun filtering through thin curtains. No signs of Hollywood, no grand furniture, no distractions, just a life lived quietly, peacefully. They sat down, facing each other like two memories rediscovering their place in the world. Then Emily took a slow breath, and the truth began to unfold. She told him she had been diagnosed with a serious illness, one that gave her no clear timeline, only uncertainty. There was no dramatic music, no trembling hands. Just honesty. Pure, unfiltered honesty. But the part that struck Keanu most was what she didn't want. She didn't want money. She didn't want favors. She didn't want any connection to his fame. She only wanted one thing, to apologize. Apologize for leaving suddenly. For walking away, without giving him the explanation he deserved. For letting fear of his uncertain future, fear of not being enough, fear of losing everything, drive her decisions. And finally, for never telling him how deeply she loved him back then. Keanu felt the world slow around him. He said nothing. Words seemed too small, too fragile for a moment this heavy. Emily excused herself and returned with something held close to her chest, a small, worn notebook, edges frayed, pages yellowed with time. I kept this, she said softly. All these years. I kept it. Keanu opened it. Sketches. His sketches. Drawings he had made when dreams were the only thing he owned. Rough outlines of scenes, characters, fantasies. Every page a piece of his younger self. On the last page, he found a note in Emily's handwriting. One day, he'll become a star. But to me, he'll always just be Keanu. It was the kind of moment no award, no fame, no applause could ever compare to. A quiet truth, powerful enough to break even the gentlest heart. Keanu stayed longer than he had planned. Hours turned into the quiet comfort of evening sunlight streaming through the windows, illuminating the small, warm living room where they sat together. They talked about everything, the little absurdities of youth, the dreams they once shared, and the people they had been before the world pulled them in different directions. Laughter came easily, soft and genuine, like it had 20 years ago. There was no awkwardness, no tension, no judgment. Just two souls reconnecting after decades apart. The conversation ebbed and flowed, moving from silly memories to moments of honesty neither had dared to share before. Keanu listened to Emily's stories of the life she had built, her triumphs, and the regrets she carried quietly. He shared his own journey, the pain, the losses, and the triumphs that Hollywood never revealed. But what happened next would surprise anyone who later heard the story. Keanu, ever the quiet, thoughtful man, took care of Emily in ways the public would never know. Without a single announcement, without inviting cameras, without telling a soul, he arranged everything she might need. Financial support, medical assistance, home care, companionship, emotional presence. He visited her regularly, just as he had decades ago, simply being there, quietly, without fanfare. Then came one of Emily's long-held wishes, something she had never shared with anyone. She had always wanted to see a film set, to witness the world he had entered, the life he led, without the barrier of distance or fame. Keanu brought her there, privately, without cameras or staff. She sat behind the scenes, watching him perform, quietly absorbing the magic of cinema. When anyone noticed her presence and asked, he simply said, "She's an old friend." No one questioned it. No one needed to. To Emily, it meant the world. In those quiet months, their bond, once severed by time and circumstance, was healed. She confided that she had never stopped believing in him, just as he confessed that her faith in him had fueled every step of his journey. And in those shared moments, laughter, stories, quiet glances, Keanu found something rare, something that fame could never give him: peace. Emily passed away quietly one early morning, the soft light of dawn spilling gently across her room. There were no alarms, no dramatic last moments, no signs of struggle, just a peaceful, natural departure. It was a fitting reflection of the life she had lived, simple, genuine, and quietly powerful. And though her physical presence was gone, the impact of her story, her connection to Keanu, would echo far beyond that small room. Keanu arrived at her memorial later that day, carrying nothing but himself and the worn sketchbook she had cherished all those years. There were no cameras, no media announcements, no security guards filling the room. He moved quietly, respectfully, as if stepping into a sacred space. Friends and family watched silently as he approached, his usually calm demeanor tinged with a rare, visible vulnerability. He gently placed the old sketchbook into her hands, symbolic of the past, of memories shared, and of a bond that had survived decades of separation. One attendee, moved by the quiet intensity of the moment, later described it online. He stood there silently, not as a Hollywood star, but as a man saying goodbye to the woman who once loved him before the world ever did. It was a moment of raw humanity, far removed from the glitz, glamour, and chaos of fame. For Keanu, the encounter wasn't about recognition or public attention, it was about truth. It was about honoring a connection that had never truly faded, despite the passage of time, the interference of circumstance, and the overwhelming pull of life's responsibilities. What he discovered after 20 years wasn't Hollywood drama, scandal, or applause. He discovered forgiveness, Emily's and his own. He discovered closure, an understanding that some chapters end not with anger or regret, but with quiet acceptance and love. And he rediscovered a reminder of the life he had before the spotlight, a life built on laughter, trust, and the kind of human connection that no fame could ever replace. And most importantly, Keanu realized something profoundly beautiful. Some bonds, once formed, never truly vanish. They linger in memory, in shared moments, in the quiet acts of love that define a life. In saying goodbye to Emily, he didn't just close a chapter, he honored a story, a bond, and a love that time could never erase.